Hello everyone, this is the ninth online tutorial video for class 12 history. We were doing the Mauryan Empire in the previous video. We were looking at how the administration was during the Mauryan Empire and whether it was a uniform administrative system throughout the empire or was just the cities, the main cities were pockets of power. Now, it is likely that administrative control was the strongest in areas around the capital and the provincial centers. These centers were carefully chosen, both Takshashila and Ujjaini being situated on important long distance trade routes. That's why those were commercial centers. That's why those two cities had importance, and that's why those two cities were politically important. While Suvarnagiri was probably important for tapping into the gold mines of Karnataka. So, Suvarnagiri was important because it had gold mines. Communication along both land and riverine routes were vital for the existence of the empire. Journeys from the center to the provinces could have taken weeks or months. This meant arranging for provisions as well as protection for those who were on the move. It is obvious that the army was an important means for ensuring the latter. Army was an important part of ensuring that movement was swift. Megasthenes mentioned a committee with 6 subcommittees for coordinating military activity. Of these, one looked after the navy, the second managed transport and provisions, the third was responsible for foot soldiers, the infantry, the fourth for horses, the cavalry, the fifth for chariots, and the sixth for elephants. The activities of the second subcommittee, that is of transport and provisions, the activities of the second subcommittee were rather varied, arranging for bullock carts to carrying equipment, procuring food for soldiers and fodder for animals, and recruiting servants and artisans to look after the soldiers. So all of these things comprised in the second category of ministers. Ashoka also tried to hold his empire together by propagating Dhamma, the principles of which, as we have seen in previous videos, were simple and virtually universally applicable. This, according to Ashoka, this would ensure the well-being of the people in this world and in the next world, even after death. So, special officers known as Dhamma Mahamattas, those were special officers, special official people who were recruited only for spreading Dhamma, who were appointed to spread the message of Dhamma throughout the empire. Those were called the Dhamma Mahamattas. When historians began reconstructing early Indian history in the 19th century, the emergence of the Mauryan Empire was regarded as a major landmark. India was then under colonial rule and was a part of British Empire. So 19th and early 20th century Indian historians found the possibility that there was an empire in early India, both challenging and exciting. So in the 19th century and in the early 20th century, the Indian historians, the Indians who became historians through studies and struggle, they found the prospect of having an empire in the ancient times, which was totally Indian in nature. The prospect was very exciting to think about. Also, some of the archaeological finds associated with the Mauryas, including stone sculptures, were considered to be the examples of spectacular art, typical of large empires. So the Greek Empire had their own specific art forms, Roman Empire had their own specific art forms, the Egyptian Empire and other empires throughout the world had their own specific art forms. Now India also has its own first empire which spread across the subcontinent, and that was the Mauryan Empire, and the Mauryan Empire also had a specific art form. Many of these historians found the message on Ashokan inscriptions very different from that of other rulers. How different? Because the other rulers, they were very much keen on uh, portraying themselves as heroes, as conquerors, as great kings. Ashoka totally went the other way. He portrayed himself as a common man. He portrayed himself as a king who works for the people. He portrayed himself as a king who was a ruler of a welfare empire, the empire which worked for the betterment of the people. So, totally different inscriptions were found in the early Indian history by the Indian historians, suggesting that Ashoka was more powerful and illustrious, as also more humble than the later rulers who adopted grandiose titles. So, as I said, the other rulers, the previous rulers, they tried to portray themselves as heroes, superheroes. They adopted grand titles. Ashoka did not do that. He totally went the other way. He portrayed himself as humbly as he could. So it is not surprising that the 20th century nationalist leaders in India regarded Ashoka as an inspiring figure. And why wouldn't they? Ashoka, from his inscriptions, they came to know that Ashoka was a humble king who worked tirelessly for the people, for the betterment of the people, for spreading peace throughout the empire. So that's why they looked up to him, the nationalist leaders in India looked up to him for inspiration. Okay, I think I will stop here. We will continue with this in the next video. Till then, bye.